Do you guys know of the term less is more? Well, it has a very interesting duality. In the case study we're gonna be talking about today, the brand new form of the day-to-day bosses, Gramgrace and Favneel. In a sense that Gramgrace has a huge change to his visual, but the change in his skill is very little, but it does mean a lot. Meanwhile, for Favneel, even though the change is little to him visually, the thing that's done behind the scene for him is a whole lot more. So duality between less is more in terms of visual and effects. But are these actually improving the deck at all? Well, that is exactly what I'm gonna be talking about today. So let's start off with Yuki's boss unit, and that is Gramgrace. And I'm gonna borrow some pointers from past turn, as I feel his explanation perfectly fit the problem with Gramgrace. Gramgrace takes a little bit longer than a lot of decks in the current format, especially now, to actually get into gear because he needs that persona. And before that, one defensive is enough to kind of block everything. And this is on top of the fact that some of his strongest cards is kind of locked behind your opponent being at grade 3 as well. So in general, the deck doesn't gain enough advantage before you hit into your Q turn, and some of the support is kind of locked behind that wall as well. So what does a brand new form of Gramgrace, Sword Saint Night Dragon Emperor, Gramgrace Zeke
improve?
This unit has 3 skills where, just like the original, your persona right increase the power of back row unit as well. And then act once per turn, Soul Blast 1, choose one of your back row center rear guard and it gets constant rear guard. This unit can attack from back row and get additional 10k until the end of turn, and if your opponent is grade 3 or greater, you can pay additional energy blast 3 to give that unit and this unit additional crit until end of turn. And then at the end of battle, your back row rear guard attack, put that unit into your soul, and if you put a card into your soul this turn, draw a card at the end of that turn. Yep, it is safe to say the change that Zeke brought to Gramgrace as a deck is very minor, but it is very effective, and it can be clearly seen in the last 2 parts of his skill, which is essentially a more refined version of the original Gramgrace skill, where instead of you have to play 1 counter blast and soul blast together, you only need to play 1 soul blast to get that power boost and attack from back row, allowing you to have more counter blast to use for cards like Lyle or Dying. Actually just utilizing his own engine better. Meanwhile, open up slots for more support that does help you to filter, which is something that Gramgrace do lack as well. And on top of that, if you're going second, you actually get a very good pressure with that additional critical. This makes Gramgrace going second a whole lot better and allow the deck to actually play regardless of going first or second. This is a huge deal. And to top things off, its third skill draws at the end of turn. Some people might call this a little bit weird, but I personally feel it is actually doing a much better job than you think it is. And that kind of boils down to the fact that now you can run certain cards that allow you some deck manipulation, and in the case of you leaving the card at the top, you know those will be in the drive check, as the original forced you to draw immediately, so you have no choice but to put that trigger back to the bottom of the deck. This helped Gramgrace to actually push much better regardless of whether you're going first or second. And now that we have introduced our challenger in the left column, let's talk about the reigning champion in the right, and that is Favneel. You know, because in their days, Kanji was like the king and then Yuki was a challenger, if you get a reference.
Sure. BANCHOU, continue.
I'll put it this way lah. Favneel is a very interesting boss unit on launch, as it is literally an antithesis to how we play in standard. And what do you get at the end of the day? Well, a consistent restander Vanguard that does have additional crit on his own and can more or less restand without the need of sacrificing too much resource, as the resource you are needing is the card in his soul had to have the sum of the total grade to be 13, you know, the Jason 13. But that is also the problem of Favneel. You see, persona right is a very important mechanic that you have to use as much as possible, because it's a huge advantage gaining for any deck in general. And the fact that Favneel was an antithesis of that kind of mechanic is his biggest downfall. I mean, it was so bad to an extent that they actually released 2 cards that indirectly buff him in the form of Cup and Horodis. And to make things worse, because of the fact that you need the sum of the grades of Dark State unit in your soul to be 13 or greater, that also means that you do have to run more cards with a high grade, forcing you to have a much smaller hand to actually push. Yeah, to put it simply, Favneel is just riddled with problems, and it feels like an experimental unit that was 100% designed just for a bloody plot. So does becoming friend with the Golden Lord actually help Favneel in improving his own skill? Well, we have Purgatory Great Dragon Emperor, Favneel, Rheingold. This unit has total of 4 skills during your turn if your Vanguard is grade 3 or greater and your soul has the original Favneel. All of your front row unit gets additional 10k and this unit get additional crit as well. And then second skill, at the beginning of your main phase, choose a card from your drop, put it into your soul, choose one of your opponent rear and retire it. Do note this retire is to your choosing, not your opponent like the original. And then at the end of the battle, this unit attack. If the sum of grades of Dark State cards in your soul is 13 or greater, counterblast 2 or put a card with Favneel in this card name from hand to soul, stand this unit and this unit get drive -1 until end of turn. And then last but not least, the 4th skill. Auto in soul, at the end of your turn, if your Vanguard is the original Favneel, you can write this card as race.
Too many.
Okay, it's a lot of word, but let me break down why this card improved original Favneel so much and deservedly so. Well, first of all, the power increase from the original Favneel is now applied to the entire front row, making him a lot more of a team player rather than a very selfish Vanguard like in the past. And the fact that you can now more or less guaranteed 1 card from soul every single turn also means that you can actually dish a lot of pieces that you want to have it in your hand into your drop so that you can recycle it back using Rheingold's skill. The 3rd skill is nothing much changed, aside from the fact that the alternate cost does help the deck a lot, though I do have to say the alternate cost doesn't really fix a boss unit this time around because of the original Favneel problematic 1st skill, and that is it can only be run 1 copy in your deck inclusive of right deck and your main deck. But the last skill is really helpful. Some of the strongest support of Favneel require you to not riding at your right phase, meaning that this card transforms itself at the end of the turn, which is normally turn 3, not only ensuring that you still can use those cards on turn 4, but also make Rheingold a prime target for any card skill that allow you or help you to put cards into soul with things like Rising, Zargon, and essentially anything that work with the deck. But it is far from perfect. As I mentioned earlier, aside from the fact that the alternate card doesn't work on him this time round, this unit is still a turn 4 card. And that kind of boils down to the fact that Rheingold still needs the original Favneel to pull off the skill. It's both good and the bad thing because to fix that they did give a 4th skill, but it is still very annoying regardless for you to actually have to still use the original Favneel to actually play Rheingold properly.
You were so close to perfect.
Overall, despite how plain he looked, like he barely changes compared to his original, Rheingold definitely bring Favneel into, I wouldn't call a proper modern deck, but at least I'm willing to no longer call it a bad deck like I have been in the past few tier lists. But what do you guys think? Personally for me, I can safely say Gramgrace more or less has all of his issue fixed. Meanwhile, Favneel still have some minor issue in the sense that, you know, getting some grade to 13 is still a very annoying thing to do unless there is brand new cards that really fix the issue for the deck. But yeah, do leave your thoughts in the comments below, and that's all I have for today. Take care of yourself, don't forget to clap that sub and become a member for more cool perks, and this is Mac Mechanic signing out.
Boom, boom, boom.